Well, first of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to be here and to interact with you. The purpose of this, this event is for us really to come up with a clean slate. If we were to talk about where we need to go, not worrying about the past, what has been done. Now let's move on and see how we can all move together and better ourselves. So my value proposition in terms of title, it's harnessing the Zambian diaspora and friends, because we do have our friends here, to accelerate Zambia's economic development. How do we go about doing that? So the good thing about it is we know that the diaspora, particularly in Zambia, and like other countries, the diaspora was not forced out of Zambia. Most countries, if you go to, let's say, Ethiopia or some of these other countries, you'll find that it's because of civil unrest. That's why they had to leave, so they were forced out of the country. Or somehow there was some political upheaval that caused others to move out of the country. But when you look at Zambians, nothing like that. We all came here for education, we came here for jobs, and we also came here for business opportunities. What the implication is that the people who are here, it's really a brain pool, if you would like to call it that way. We have the expertise, we have the experience, we have the education, and we have the overall global view of how businesses could actually work. Now, I have to give an example at this point. And the example is a very simple example coming from the Four Tigers. There is Taiwan. Taiwan and Zambia, actually, they're pretty much similar in terms of where they started. When we started, I went back to 1965, for instance. At that point, Zambia's population was about 3.6. And Taiwanese population was 3.3. You look at the GDP, which is the gross domestic product, which measures the economic activity in a country. Taiwan was 2.8 billion, and Zambia was 1.0 billion, okay? Which was pretty much a ratio of 1 to 2.8. Now, fast forward to 2020. Do you know what the GDP of Taiwan is? Well, you can always use our friend Google and, and find out. But Taiwan is sitting at 668 billion, and Zambia is sitting at 19. I think you can see the discrepancy there. You can see the gap. Now, the question is, let's go back and look at how did Taiwan manage to make it the way it did? And you know, Taiwan is also, it's in a conflict, or let's say there was a friction between, which continues to today, friction between China and Taiwan. So there is something there that's going on. Whereas Zambia, there isn't anything that's going on. Well, so one of the things that happened is that Taiwan was very quick to recognize the contribution of the diaspora, whereas Zambia wasn't. It was crying about brain drain. But Taiwan wasn't calling it a brain drain. They were calling it a brain pool. So this is why we can actually pull out. These are resources that we should be able to use. And that's what I'm trying to talk about here. The question is, can we do it? Yes, we can. Because what Taiwan did is not different. It's all there. What they did is they created a diaspora policy. That policy was not formulated by the ministers and all those people just sitting there and saying, I think this is what should be good for the Zambian diaspora. But they brought in the diaspora from all over the world and say, hey, we want to develop and we want to use your expertise. We want to use your knowledge. How can we do that? They sat down and had a policy that was actually favorable, I created an enabling environment for the Taiwanese to be able to participate. They recognize that, well, some of them want to go back, and the others don't want to, but they would like to actually contribute to the development of Taiwan. And others would like to actually just do it maybe 6-7 months. In fact, when they formed it, people were thinking that it was a waste of time, a waste of money and time. The reason being that once that policy was in place, most of the people were coming from Silicon Valley, going all the way to Taiwan. In fact, they used to call them astronauts because they spent most of their time on the, well, I think, I think my good friend Susan Morris there is nodding her head because that's what she does. So, so she identifies with them. They thought it was a waste of time. Well, it wasn't. Because as they went on, you actually saw a gradual transformation where most of, at that time, no company in Taiwan was actually led by a diaspora person. But as they went through the process, they began to transfer some of those responsibilities. You find that about 20% of the top companies, they were all led by the Taiwanese diaspora. And then they started, and how that worked is because these people in the diaspora, they knew other people. So like the Hinshu Industrial Park, which now is actually worth, it's producing $28 billion in terms of revenues. So what they did was the diaspora went out there and started inviting others and say, hey, if you want to do a business, come to Taiwan. This is the best place where we even have an educated nation and so on and so forth. So apart from the knowledge, the leadership, they also had the friends. And this is why friends is very important, because we're not going to do it all alone as Zambians. But we have to have friends who are going to join us to make it happen. So having said that, now I would like to step back and look at the Zambian diaspora. All the things I've talked about, I could have gone into details, but I'm mindful, I'm timing myself, I'm mindful of how much time I have here. But because this is one of those topics that is very dear to me, because I think Zambia could do much, much better than it's doing now. And that's the reason why you find I'm very passionate about it. And I had to time myself to make sure that I don't speak for 4 hours. So, which I can do, by the way. I do teach 4-hour classes. So, can we achieve that? Indeed, we can. Look at some of the things that we can do. Look at the doctors. We have a lot of doctors abroad, Zambian doctors, Zambian nurses. All those can render some kind of contribution to the development of the Zambian health sector. Capacity building. We have people who are teaching at kindergarten all the way to the highest qualification in the world. We have the University of Zambia. We have all these other universities in Zambia. We can have a collaboration between the diaspora and the locals, so that we end up with a system that is workable, that is producing high-quality students. We can even have partnerships. That's not beyond us. We can partner with Harvard, we can partner with MIT, we can partner with any university in the US or anywhere else, so that we have that collaboration that makes sure that our students are exposed to whatever else somebody else is doing, so that they can feel proud when they get out. They know they can compete with anybody, just like all of us can compete with anybody. Look at the kinds of things that Zambia does in terms of consultation. Well, most of the time, in fact, almost all the time, they go to these external organizations, foreign organizations, to seek advice. Like last time I saw, oh yeah, Zambia has engaged this company so that it can restructure its loans with the IMF or with the World Bank. That's a lot of money going to waste. We could easily put together a team that can do exactly that, if not better. In fact, in the room, there wasn't even a Zambian. How do you go out there and solve a problem when you don't even know what the real problem is? I mean, to every problem, there are nuances that you may not be aware of. But once you come in, you ask the person, oh, I mean, look at that. It's like having a doctor who just reads your chart and makes a prescription. That's not the way it's supposed to work. We need to have real Zambians there being represented, representing Zambia, and being able to articulate the problem. No wonder we get to such raw deals. Then so in other words, what I'm saying is we can form think tanks to solve any problem that Zambia needs. Look at entrepreneurship. Instead of us trying to streamline how things, streamline the business environment, we are not doing that. We are making it difficult for people to do business. Oh, you need to go to Pakra. Oh, Pakra is taking 3 years. Why should it be taking so long when today, in the next 5 minutes, I can go online and form a company? Just 5 minutes, I'm done. Why are we increasing the costs? Excuse me. Why are we increasing the cost and putting all these unnecessary barriers when we know that is something that we should be doing? Any company you go, any country you go to, business is very important. So there's something here. We can engage the diaspora to bring in investors in any section of the economy that you want. Second, we can even form something like, something like a satellite, satellite campuses or something like that, here in the US, in the UK, in Australia, and any other place. So that even these entrepreneurs, we create an ecosystem that is going to allow them to function. And we even involve universities. Why not? So somebody has got an idea, he's an engineer, he doesn't know how to do marketing. He doesn't know how to do the accounting. He doesn't know how to put down term sheets. The university should be able to do that. And also the government should be able to provide an enabling environment such that those who have got needs, they go there, here are our needs. And the younger fellas who come in and actually provide solutions. And those who want, let's say they formed companies, they don't have access to capital, we can even make them make presentations to people here, to the investors here in the US or anywhere else, just simply by doing Zoom or by doing any of these, using any of these platforms that are available. But what we've done is just close them off, and then we cry about, hey, we don't have the ability to do that. Yeah, you are in the US, you have access to investors. Well, if I have access to investors, I'm a Zambian, then you have access to investors. That's the way it works. Also advocating for Zambia. Again, we see the negotiations going on with IMF, World Bank, and so on, and they tell them, hey, part of the solution is you have too many subsidies. Get rid of the subsidies and you will be fine. Meanwhile, the US is actually giving us free money. And these are people who have got money. But we are saying, well, for our program to work, you need to remove support for the people. But that's the reason why you even went to the IMF or the World Bank in the first place, is you wanted to make life better for the people. Now at the same time, you're going to deprive the little that they have. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But if we had proper representation, people understand this is how the Zambian government works, and this is what the Zambian people are looking for, then we can do it. Like Chile did it when Chile wanted to, it was in a mess at some point, wanted to get a loan from the World Bank. They told it the same stuff, okay, don't remove all the subsidies and all those kinds of things. They said, no, these austerity measures are too much for us. We are going to do our own thing. And now they've become part of an example of how you should go about building your country. So it's not following others that works. Yes, we can use the good things, but let us maximize the resources that we have. instead of ignoring the resources and spending more on this side. Now, obviously, this conference is about how should we move from now on. We've done a lot of complaining about what happened in the past. Now we are here. How do we move forward? And here are some of my suggestions. Obviously, I expect you, as the conference unfolds, that you are going to have your own solutions. And we're looking forward to your solutions. And I'll ask you two questions that you need to look at later on. Now, what needs to be done is we need to have a diaspora policy, just like the way Taiwan did. And this diaspora policy should not be made in Lusaka, but in collaboration with the rest of the world, the rest of the Zambians abroad. And two, that diaspora policy is the one that is going to put together a framework for engagement between the Zambians in Zambia and the Zambians abroad. So it has to be a centralized place run by a combination of the locals and the diaspora, not only the locals. And two, statistics. It's very funny. I don't know how many of you have tried to find out information about Zambia and the people abroad. You'll be surprised. Some will tell you 800 people are leaving the country every year. So if you calculate that backward, let's say go back 50 years, which means we are just talking about less than 50,000 people who have left the country. And I know, all of you know that number is not correct. The other number I saw was 495,000 people outside of the US in terms of Zambians. Well, again, that number, you have to take it with a grain of salt. In other words, what I'm trying to say here is we don't have a real number to work with. So if we have something like a diaspora policy and we have a framework, that framework should have some kind of a platform where Zambians can actually be, where we can take hold of we can have a proper number in terms of how many Zambians are abroad. Why do I need that? Well, that's important. Just following the Taiwanese step, they use that to even advertise for jobs, look at the real estate market, look at what's happening in the health sector, and so on. So that now the diaspora have got a sense of what's going on in their own countries on a daily basis. They know there is a central location where they can go rather than just flipping through Google, and you don't get accurate information. You don't know how old that information is that you are dealing with and how accurate it is. But in this case, you have a location where you can go. And also that the policy that we come up with, or the framework that we come up with, has got to take into consideration different situations for different Zambians abroad. Some of them, they want to go back, but they don't know how to do that. Because all they will do is they will bounce from job to job to job to job. At the end of the day, they don't want to look like they didn't know what they were doing. But we have to have a smooth transition, a process in which somebody can do that. Then we look at some of them who have got families here and they want to stick around. Those who just like to go to Zambia, let's say 6 months or 1 year and come back, or 3 months. And also in terms of other people that we know, our friends who would like to go to Zambia to provide specific expertise, we can be in a position to do that. And that will create an enabling environment for investors. So which will accelerate our economic development. Then lastly, dual citizenship. This has been a big, so obviously now they've decided, well, let's have dual citizenship. But the way it's being run is not the right way. You have to apply, and when you apply, you find that you are logged out, and there are all kinds of things that are not working. So what we need is the embassies ought to be able to issue you a passport. They ought to be able to issue a citizenship. Instead of depending on going back to Lusaka, and Lusaka takes its time. It's never in a hurry. So we don't want that. We want to make sure to make this speedy so that anybody who wants to go, this is their country. Amen. Yeah. So they need to be able to get back to Zambia anytime they want to. Now, I can see I've run out of time. Now I've got a couple of questions. As we go through this whole process, think about you yourself as an individual. How can you contribute to the development of Zambia? Think about that. And second, as a group, I would like us to find out, how can we organize ourselves in such a way that we are able to influence the government to pretty much give us what's ours, allow us to develop, to help in developing Zambia. Once we organize ourselves, it's much easier to go to Lusaka and say, look, this is how we are now working, and we would like to work with you. But before, this is what our proposal is, but we want to have also the input of the locals. Because when you're doing things, for instance, for those who are not going to Zambia regularly, you have to have somebody there doing the legwork. And somebody who's going to be there doing the legwork is a Zambian. And there is no reason why we shouldn't be working together. So all the things that you thought about in the past that was happening, let's forget about that. Let's start with a clean slate and make sure now that we can change what we've been talking about as the brain drain and turn that into brain recirculation. Thank you.